Hey everybody, welcome into Redacted on this Thursday. I'm Clayton Morris, so glad to have you all here. Natalie is not feeling well. She is off. She's off on a crazy news day where we're going to be watching and waiting for the jury deliberations to wrap up in the Trump hush money trial, as they're calling it. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. We thought maybe we could see it as early as today, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. We'll talk about the very latest on that. We're also going to talk about the move towards war with Russia, NATO actively moving in this direction. Something very interesting is happening in developments from the NATO front. Really, they're trying to cook up something. This is, I think, the best summation of it. They're really trying to cook up, pushing us into a hot war with Russia. And it's very odd, actually, because all of the mainstream media seems to be on the same page. And I'm going to show you the evidence of that tonight. We're going to look at the receipts. We're going to show you how they're all lining up right now for something big. And it's a perfect distraction to have Trump at trial and all of that so that we can not be focused on what's about to happen with NATO. But we're going to talk about it. We're also going to talk about Canada and why they're trying to lower the voting age in that country to 16 years old. Could it have anything to do with the fact that these individuals live at home and maybe they are, Trudeau family supporters, liberal supporters in the country of Canada? Why would you want to lower the voting age to 16? You can't drink, can't even drive. But you want to vote. You want to vote for the new prime minister and Parliament. We'll talk about that. Plus, we're also going to get an update on the invasion of Haiti. Some interesting developments over the past 48 hours in that country. 2 American missionaries killed there. Of course, the Biden administration would love nothing more than to use that as a catalyst to invade that country. Dan Cohen's going to be joining us upon the release of a brand new documentary on Haiti so that you can understand the truth. So good to have all of you guys here on this Thursday. Let us know where you're joining us from around the world. We're streaming live on YouTube. We're streaming live on Rumble. We are live on X. Good to see all of you guys. Anthony Goodley says, yes, Natalie is sick. She's got some upper respiratory thing and she had to go to urgent care. And so she is trying to rest and sleep. So thank you guys for all your well wishes. It's been a crazy few days here. And it's
I see people.
Yeah.
Sorry, I see people also asking about the show starting early, and that was just because the clock on one of the computers was 5 minutes ahead. So that's what happened there.
Yeah, it's funny. How did that happen? Why clock on a computer is early? What is this? Y2K?
Yeah.
But anyway, we saw that the countdown timer had already gone and completed its running, and so I said, "Well, just start the show. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Let's talk. Let's go. Let's do it." So. Anyway, we're going to have a good discussion tonight about a lot of news stories tonight. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Donald Trump. Let's talk about this verdict and what we're waiting on from the jury. Jury deliberations entering the second day right now. And, there's a lot of interesting moments that have unfolded throughout this day. What we learned actually about the jury asking the judge for more clarification yesterday on his rules. Okay. Now, he created 53 pages of rules that the jury is set to understand and to decide on. And it took him about an hour and a half to read these rules to the jury yesterday. And he told them that. He said, I'm going to read this. I'm not going to give them to you. I'm not going to print these out and give them to you. Now, very often, almost always, they do that. They give them the jury instructions. You take them then to your deliberation room. Here's the instructions. You want to flip to page 43 and see what the judge has to say about the instructions? You can do that. But instead of doing that, oddly, he decided to read them for an hour and a half, 53 pages of it. Okay, you got all that? You got all that 53 pages of information? Now go and deliberate. And by the way, see if you can find him guilty. One of the things that he said when he was giving the instructions, he used a metaphor, basically. And he said, suppose you wake up in the morning and it's not raining, but the streets are wet and people are wearing raincoats and holding umbrellas. Under those circumstances, you may conclude that it rained during the night. So this metaphor he used to tell the jury, so if you see all these other things, you can conclude that this person is guilty. So with those marching orders, I want you to go deliberate.
Yeah, it's just like, I know you think you saw all this stuff, but if you saw all this stuff, but you don't actually see a crime, there is one there. You just have to see all the stuff around it.
Right. You just have to piece it all together, and you have to pull. And by the way, we can have a unanimous verdict here. You don't all of you jurors have to agree on every one of these different charges, all of these different pieces of the crime. So 4 of you might say yes to this one, 4 of you might say yes to this one, 4 of you might say yes to this one, and then we've got a guilty verdict. So Judge Mershon yesterday had asked, the jury came forward and asked for a repeat of certain instructions. And instead of going over it again, he just sent them home. It was about 4:30 last night, so he sent them home. So instead, again, if you would have printed out the jury instructions, they wouldn't have had to ask for a repeat of them. And then they came back today, about an hour and a half ago, and they've now asked for a repeat of jury instructions. They want from page 7 up to page 53. From page 7 up to 53. They want him to reread the jury instructions because they didn't print them out.
Maybe he's just lonely and wants to be visited by the jury, and so this is his way of doing it. It's like, leaving something at your ex-girlfriend's house or something. I got to come by and pick that up. Like
Costanza on Seinfeld leaving like the keys behind, right? Or like leaving the clock behind. He's like, I got to come back for these. I got to come back and over here, and just an opportunity for me to see you again. By the way, we also learned today that, of course, President Trump, he asked President Trump to sit in the trial room all afternoon while the jury's deliberating, so that he can't go campaign, he can't sit at home, he has to sit in this jury, he has to sit in the trial room. Could be all day. It was all day yesterday, all day today, could be all day tomorrow. And this is, of course, part of the plan, right? This is the plan to keep him from campaigning. He can't go to battleground states. He can't fly to Wisconsin. He can't go to Pennsylvania. He can't go to Michigan. He can't go to Colorado. He can't go out west. He can't go anywhere. He could go to the Bronx for the afternoon, but he can't go anywhere. But he's got to stay in the trial room right now as he waits and sitting there waiting. So we're sitting there waiting. But meanwhile, I don't know if you noticed something over the past 24 hours, news headlines all over the place. We're running news headlines about Donald Trump and a former Apprentice producer who's saying that Donald Trump used the N-word and they have it on tape. And it's amazing it's amazing timing on all of this, as Mike Benz points out. Mike Benz, of course, cyber Mike Benz, former State Department cyber expert. Of course, he was on Tucker's show and was one of the most memorable episodes of Tucker. And he said, as soon as the jury goes into deliberation, they try to rig the jury pool with fake N-word news cycle, clockwork oranged into New Yorkers' phones so no juror can avoid seeing it. So no juror could avoid seeing this news. It's on every major news publication. Former apprentice star, former apprentice says that Trump is accused of using the N-word, using all of these headlines. So that these jurors, as they're deliberating, do I think he's a bad guy? I don't know. Oh, there's all of this news suddenly that comes out of the woodwork about The Apprentice, and this guy says that he used the N-word. Okay. So we also got some pretty bombshell information today from Laura Loomer, and an exclusive that she reported that on Judge Mershon's daughter. Of course, she's been covering this side of the story and how corrupt they are. Judge Mershon's daughter, Lauren Mershon's clients from her Democrat political consulting firm, Authentic HQ, have been given seats inside the Trump trial in New York City. Judge Mershon is now allowing his daughter's clients, Democrat clients, to have unrestricted access inside the Trump trial. And she is a Democrat political consultant. Judge Mershon's daughter has Kamala Harris as a client, of course. We knew this. But so this was a big story this afternoon. So he's given them unfettered access to sit and watch all of this inside the trial. So NBC News talked a little bit about this, an NBC News legal correspondent, about this whole 53 pages, why this is this is NBC News talking about this. Legal expert on NBC News saying that this is really not normal, and this should be printed out and given to the jury in a deliberation room so they can have the instructions right in front of them. Watch.
I got it. These are the instructions that the jury has to follow in Donald Trump's hush money trial before they can reach a verdict. 53 pages. This is complicated. This is lengthy stuff. It took the judge over an hour to read it, but guess what? The jury doesn't get this in the room during deliberations. They have to write questions, they can write notes, but they don't get these instructions. In New York, both parties have to agree and the judge has to agree. And in this case, it didn't happen. They don't have this in the room right now.
So again, we're waiting for the jury deliberations, but because they keep asking for the judge to repeat himself, we're wasting all of this time. And he has to now read another 40 pages because they didn't print them out and go over the jury instructions. Go ahead, David.
Isn't this unprecedented? And won't this make it very easy for a mistrial and an appeal because of all of this stuff that they can prove is happening that this judge is doing?
I mean, it's possible, but it seems like, well, that's, I mean, a lot of people pointing towards a mistrial because of just the political corruption here, all of these missteps by this judge, a number of major mistakes that President Trump has been calling out on Truth Social, specifically about this issue that you just brought up. He just posted on Truth Social about an hour ago about the jury instructions. But remember, it's all chess, right? So if they can keep him off the campaign trail, they're winning. They're winning. They're winning right now in battleground states with this. And if you look at the numbers, former Bush advisor Karl Rove pointed out the numbers on this. And by the way, he's called out Judge Merchan on this. He thinks it's been awful. He's not a Trump supporter, just to be clear, just so you understand biases here. Karl Rove is not a Trump supporter, but he's also not a Democrat. But he is a numbers guy. Okay, Karl Rove is a numbers guy. Karl Rove once showed me a binder. It was this thick. Okay, he brought it to dinner, and he showed me all of the numbers from different battleground states and county by county. I mean, he knew exactly how to get George W. Bush elected by specifically targeting certain counties in Ohio. He knew exactly what he was talking about. So regardless of what you think about Karl Rove, it doesn't matter. He's a numbers guy. He knows elections, and he understands county by county data points for swing states specifically. Okay, again, regardless of what you think about the guy, it doesn't really matter. Who cares? But what he said today is, by doing this, they're specifically hurting Trump. If he is convicted, the numbers show in the polling in these battleground states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, that this could alter the election because of those who are saying that they would likely not vote for Trump if he is convicted. And specifically in certain counties and in certain swing states. So again, is this going to have an effect on the election? Who knows? But according to the data guys, the guys who look county by county, seat by seat, they know who's likely to vote yes or no. And these are Trump voters that we're talking about these numbers on. These are diehard Trump voters who say that if he's convicted, they are likely to not vote for him. So they know the game that's being played right now. And by keeping him off the chess table right now, not able to tour, go on massive rallies, they're keeping him in New York during vital campaign time right now. And they know exactly what they're doing. But there's another big piece of this, which is the jail time piece of this, which, according to Reuters this afternoon, if the jury deliberating in the Donald Trump criminal trial makes a historic decision to convict him, the judge overseeing the case will face a monumental choice: whether to sentence the Republican candidate to time behind bars. Prison time is rare for people convicted in New York State of felony falsification of business records. So it's rare. That's the charge that Trump, a businessman turned politician, faced at his 6-week trial. But legal experts said precedent can only be so helpful in guiding Justice Juan Merchan's decision on the appropriate sentence in the first criminal trial of a U.S. president, past or present. So typically, this is not the kind of case where you would expect a first-time white-collar offender to receive a sentence of incarceration. So likely no prison time, unless, of course, he wants to make an example of him. And then he can rule in that way. And then he faces prison time, even upon waiting for an appeal. So this is all very, very interesting. The jury deliberations, during jury deliberations yesterday, this was an unbelievable moment because people are saying, wow, Biden didn't have anything to do with it. Really? Biden didn't have anything to do with this? The Biden administration has nothing to do with this show trial? Are you kidding me? Again, regardless if you're a Trump supporter or not, I think any idiot would see that that's the case. I don't care where you come down on this. The weaponization of the Justice Department is exactly what they've been doing. And of course, the cozy relationships with these individuals who should have recused themselves are still on this case, are still on this trial. So Alina, Trump's attorney, Alina Habba, yesterday was on Fox News. She was on with Shannon Bream, and I thought this moment was unbelievable. And I don't know why she was really sort of like trying to run interference for the Biden administration. Shannon Bream was. But she decided to basically say that the Biden administration really has nothing to do with this. This is all on Trump. So watch Trump's attorney just go after her. This is an unbelievable moment. Watch.
Use the same means as somebody who's just trying to have a quick slip and fall and make money. And that is frankly what we're seeing right now. This is exactly a Biden show because he's got to distract the American people. Listen,
but the Biden administration is not responsible for this trial.
How can you say the Biden administration is not responsible for this trial?
It's a state trial. It's Alvin Bragg. Whether you think there's a political motive for him, it's not connected to the DOJ. I mean, Shannon, the feds passed on these election charges.
Shannon, you should look at how many logs they have of state officials, Letitia James, Fannie Willis, visiting the White House, and then tell me that this is not a Biden trial. I don't care.
The feds pass on this case is the point I'm making.
Right. The feds pass on this case. Also, DA Cy Vance passed on this case. And
years ago, and then it came back.
And Bragg passed on this case. You know when it came back? When he decided to run for office. Mm-hmm. So tell me how that's not an indication that Joe Biden, who just sent his campaign down here with Robert De Niro yesterday, isn't a part of this. Frankly, any question that we had of that was squashed yesterday. And if you have even more concerns about whether he's involved in this, look at the fact that he is publicizing, literally publicizing for tonight to have a speech if a verdict comes out. That's a sad state of affairs. Meanwhile, our country is falling apart. He's got bigger fish to fry.
Do you not think, though, that any president would want to weigh in on something that's this historic, a former president, his predecessor, whatever the verdict or decision may be?
I wish that Biden had that same sentiment about the border, fentanyl, and our children being mutilated. I would prefer that he would focus on the real things instead of trying to attack his political opponent, who he just cannot beat.
Well, we'll see what the jury does and how quickly they do it. Alina, thanks for stopping by.
So Biden administration has nothing to do with it. So Trump flew off the handle about this on Truth Social. He said, "I never knew Shannon Bream was so naive. In her interview with my representative, Alina Habba, Shannon just suggested that crooked Joe Biden was not involved in my show trial. How stupid. Not only is he involved, he's virtually leading it, and all of the other trials as well, meaning his people, because he's not mentally sharp enough to lead anything. Just take a look at the DOJ, White House thugs involved, and everything else. Biden is incompetent and feels that weaponization is the only way he can win. He's counting on the Shannon Breams of the world to get him there. Bad day for Shannon." So again, this afternoon, the jury deliberating and asking for a follow-up and additional information from the judge to reread the jury instructions. The jury yesterday asked for testimony, additional testimony from a number of key witnesses in this, and they were given a laptop. So they have a laptop that they can use in the jury room where they can listen in onto audio and clips of the different testimony from the different key witnesses. But this is unbelievable that they still won't print out these jury instructions. So we have to keep regurgitating these things over and over again as they're trying to, I guess, maybe piece together how exactly they can convict him. So, I mean, what do you guys think is going to happen here? I mean, I'll just give you sort of my kind of hot take on this. I think they are absolutely trying to push towards a conviction. If they get a convicted felon, if they get him convicted, will they put him in prison right away? I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think that they would keep him out. And I think I've seen a number of people believe that Democrats would, of course, use this to their advantage. You'd absolutely see television ads being run calling him a convicted felon, and that you should not vote for a convicted felon. That's exactly what Democrats will do. They want that name on him. They want that tag on him. They want that moniker on him that he's convicted. And then will he serve prison time?
Does that mean he would technically have to be removed from all of the ballots because you can't run a convicted felon on a political ticket, or can you? Like would that completely remove him from everything?
No.
So he could still win the election, which it looks like he would.
I mean, like Tim Pool tweeted yesterday. It's like, he could go to jail. If he goes to jail, he wins all 50 states. Like he would be, that's his prediction. That's a lot of people's prediction. He would be like martyred if he goes to jail, right? Can you imagine them having like the Trump mugshot? They would use that to their advantage in campaign ads, and that's exactly what they would try to do to try to keep him from getting to the White House. And then, if he does win, in November, then that's when you put him in prison. Like, you delay the sentencing, you wait and decide, okay, he's convicted. How long until I decide then he'll be actually sentenced, or I can put him in prison? He's going to have to serve jail time. And this is the game.
And then will
we
be able to have the argument that Biden didn't concede then the election because of
he'll just stay in. Well, no, he'll, because of the war that they want to start in Russia, he'll just use martial law. He'll just stay in, and they won't, have to worry about that. So, I mean, I'm genuinely scared right now about what's going to happen. I'm absolutely worried what these clowns are trying to do right now. Does this rip apart the fabric of the United States even more than it already has? Well, at least I feel like the Democratic Party has been fractured big time with a specific demographic over Israel and Gaza, right? So I feel like, the Democrats are right now in a position where they're going to have to cheat to win. I don't think they have any other choice but to cheat somehow. I mean, did you see there's photos that came out from President Biden at a rally yesterday, and it's a totally empty gymnasium. But the way that
not even like 200 people.
Yeah, but the way that the camera is set up, they've got a bunch of people behind him with signs, but the front, there's no one in front of him. It's just empty, totally empty. Mm-hmm. And they're chanting 4 more years, 4 more years, and there's no one in front of him. It's just like an empty gymnasium. There's just no one there. No one's coming. Where's the excitement? So you're gonna tell me you're gonna get the largest amount of votes in the history of a candidate? Really? 80 million? Where's the enthusiasm? Do you drive around and see? I don't know. Do you guys see like just tons of enthusiasm for Biden?
Well, that to me is my biggest hope in this election is that they do try to do what they did last time, and at this point, people would have no choice but to see through the electoral system and how flawed it is right now, and be like, okay, this needs to be fixed. Because the more people that we have that realize that on both sides, because if he wins at this point, there's a lot of people on the Democratic side that are going to be like, wait, what? How? Right. So that's my hope, is that this is the election that brings the sunlight to our electoral system and shows us what, a shit show it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, we just got the votes. We just got the verdict from two separate independent audits in Arizona. We now have that confirmed. We can't say that on this platform because that's part of their terms of service. You can't talk about Arizona and election results. But just look it up. Google the results of the 2 independent audits from Arizona, and you'll see what happened. It's unbelievable. And so I think you're right about that. I think this could be the emperor has no clothes election, where I think, the American people would be absolutely stunned. Wait a minute, he won he beat Donald Trump in a landslide? Really? How's that possible? Well, especially when you have RFK Jr., right? Splitting the vote. I just don't see any possible way, unless you keep him in prison.
Remember, just within the past, probably 20 years, they used to do all this stuff in secret. But it's like now they're so blatant that they don't care about the border policy. They're just blatantly lying on X, and it's all like they're just doing all of this publicly and propagandizing their base to keep them, attacking, so that people are constantly fighting each other. But they don't even care anymore. They're just doing this all out in the open, and that is good for us because now it's so much easier for us. And with these free speech platforms, that's why Rumble and X and BitChute and all these are very important platforms right now, because we are winning the propaganda war in social media. We might not be winning it in the mainstream yet, but on social media, we are winning it.
Right. I mean, people are wondering, like, why, RFK Jr. being kept off of presidential debate stage. What? Like, Ross Perot was on there. RFK Jr., the son of a former attorney general of the United States, the nephew of an assassinated president of the United States. You're going to keep him off a debate stage? He's running as an independent candidate. You can't have him allowed. You can't have him up there with Trump and Biden. Why? So he just filed a complaint. Hopefully that'll be listened to. I don't know. But will he be included in the CNN debate? I don't know. But this is how corrupt it is. I mean, this is how this system is. It's incredibly corrupt. So we're watching it, folks. We'll see verdict day today. I don't think so. It seems like they still have a lot of questions. This jury is still trying to go through all these jury instructions. They're re-listening to a lot of testimony right now from a couple of key witnesses, Michael Cohen, Pecker. It doesn't seem like they're terribly interested in getting any further data on Stormy Daniels. That hasn't been part of their jury requests. I think they're kind of like, we don't need to hear from her. I don't want to re-listen to that. We're good on that.
We've already seen the tapes.
Yeah, So let's just focus on Pecker and let's focus on Michael Cohen. Anyway, all right, we'll keep our eye on that. That's a big story, of course. The mainstream media is all over this and wall-to-wall coverage of it. I think it's one of the most important stories, but I think for a variety of other reasons. I think the stories that aren't being told, the keeping him off the campaign stage right now is a big piece of this story. How this plays in swing states is important, and also the political football that's being used right now in order to maybe keep him out of prison, hold off on that until he either wins in November, and then you'll roll out the idea of sentencing. So this is the last trial we're going to see in this calendar year. And by the way, the next one that this Judge Merchan is going to be taking up is Steve Bannon. How does this judge, by the way, keep getting all of these Trump-related cases? It's amazing how this guy keeps getting all of these cases. It's really
that's no accident.
It's really coincidental, isn't it? Acting judge. But we're going to have this guy handle all of these big cases. It's really interesting.
Somebody needs to follow the money. Like that judge, there's got to be some dirty money in his path or in his bank, account somewhere. People need to follow that money because he's getting his palms greased somewhere.
Or his daughters.
Yeah.
Or with
someone.
How you don't recuse yourself when your daughter literally has a client that's Kamala Harris? Like, how do you not recuse yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we've got more news to get to. We're going to look at the NATO war against Russia and some unbelievable developments over the past 24 hours on that front. Arguably the biggest story in the world, but it's being eclipsed by waiting on this jury deliberations from Trump. We're also going to look at Canada lowering its voting age to 16. Could that have anything to do with trying to get more votes for Justin Trudeau? Grasping at any straws they can right now. Also looking at the Haiti invasion. We'll talk about that. But first, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you hate crappy coffee? I, for one, hate crappy coffee.
I loathe it. I
loathe crappy coffee. There's nothing. I mean, I love starting my day with a great cup of coffee. It's one of my. It's honestly, as an adult, it's one of the things I look forward to. Sitting there and then having a nice walk with my dog, sitting talking with my wife over a cup of coffee. It's what I look forward to every morning. It's the simple things in life, right? And that's why I'm so excited to introduce you to a company revolting against crappy coffee, 1775 Coffee. And right now you get 10% off at checkout with your first order. And you know what you can do, guys? For the husbands in your life, the men in your life, Father's Day is coming up, right? Perfect gift for Father's Day. And you can do a subscription, do it so that hey, a bag or a couple of bags of beans show up every month to the house. You can do that. Go to 1775coffee.com/redacted. Get 10% off right now. Their beans are from the best farms in Bolivia. Their farm to cup journey ensures the highest quality, authenticity, sustainability from start to finish. Really fantastic beans. You've got to give them a shot. and get 10% off right now when you try them out. 1775coffee.com/redacted and use that code redacted for 10% off at checkout of your first order. So thanks to 1775 for supporting the show and all of you patriots out there who also are joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for subscribing and being here. Again, Natalie's not feeling well. If you tuned in late tonight, we are streaming live right now on this Thursday night, watching and waiting for the jury deliberations to wrap up. The Trump verdict, the judge has kept Donald Trump in the trial room all day instead of letting him campaign or spend the day at home or anything like that. He has to sit there while the Biden administration can continue to campaign. There's something fishy about that, right? So we're watching that. We are waiting on that. But meanwhile, there's more news to get to tonight. NATO is cooking up something big right now, very big. According to excellent journalist and friend of the show, Eva Bartlett, quote, I've heard from several contacts now who've gotten the same nearly verbatim emails and questions. NATO's mouthpieces are cooking something up. Now, if you know Eva, she's one of the finest journalists in the world, okay? Hands down. Very few people even come close to her. She's not given to hyperbole, okay? She's not one to say, NATO's up to something. No. She's basing that in fact, and it's deeply, deeply concerning. I'll tell you, a hot war with Russia is happening, folks. We need to wake up right now. The Biden administration, led by Antony Blinken, because President Biden is not leading this administration. It's Antony Blinken. He's president, basically, of the United States. Blinken hints U.S. will allow Ukraine to strike Russian territory with U.S. missiles. He made the comments in Moldova, where he is right now, getting them to shut down their state media to enable them to stop any kind of Russian information that's coming into their country. Going to give millions of dollars in aid for that country right now, as long as they stand in lockstep with us right now. Anyway, he said that the U.S. may allow Ukraine to strike Russian territory with U.S.-made missiles, which would risk provoking a major response from Russia, of course. Last night, Blinken actively pushing to allow NATO to strike Russian territory with U.S.-made missiles. I don't care how you spin this. We are not stupid. This means the U.S. is attacking Russia, a physical, hot, kinetic war with Russia. This is how they will control us. This is how they will remain in power. Think you have an election to worry about coming up in November? Not if we're at a full-blown war with Russia. They won't have to even worry about election. We'll cancel the DNC. We'll cancel the Democratic National Convention. We'll make sure that all of you get a ballot mailed to your house. You don't have to leave the house. There's a security risk. Why would you want to go to a grocery store? Why would you want to leave your house? After all, Russia could hit you. This is how they will control us. Remember, Tucker Carlson warned us about this. Right after he was let go from Fox News, he talked about a hot war with Russia and how they've tried the COVID strategy. They actively want a hot war with Russia. This is how they will control us. Watch.
Here's my view of it. I think the lies are unsustainable. Lying is always unsustainable. You're always found out in the end, whether in your lifetime or posthumously. But lies are always revealed by their nature. And these lies are so big and so obvious and so stupid that it's going to be very clear to the majority of voters before the election that the Biden administration has no idea what it's doing, that Joe Biden is not running the government, and that it's not working at all. And I think by that point, we're going to have a real economic contraction. I think we're going to be in the teeth of a very tough recession, and that makes everything much more intense. And so if your goal is to maintain power, and if you think once you relinquish power, the problem with criminalizing politics is the people who do it imagine or know that it will be done to them. So once you start indicting your political opponents, you know that you have to win or else they're going to indict you if they win, right?
Right.
And so they can't lose. They will do anything to win. So how do they do that? They're not going to do COVID again. I know everyone on the right's afraid they're going to do COVID and mask mandate. They're not going to do that. They can't do that. If they've already been exposed, that won't work. There's going to be what are they going to do? They're going to go to war with Russia. Is what they're going to do. There will be a hot war between the United States and Russia in the next year. And
really?
Yes, of course. They want it anyway. I don't think we'll win it, but that's a separate analysis. But
Now, that was 9 months ago. Pretty prescient. Then the mainstream media playing right along with Biden. Here's the New York Times in lockstep. From allies and advisors, pressure grows on Biden to allow attacks on Russian territory. President Biden is weighing fears of escalation with a nuclear-armed adversary as he considers whether to let Ukraine shoot American weapons into Russia. First of all, do any of you believe for a hot second that President Biden is weighing anything in his brain? I mean, honestly. And I don't say that to be rude, but I mean, do you think advisors are sitting around wondering, the president, he's up there sitting at the coffee table by the fireplace, like Franklin Roosevelt, you know?
I think they just give him an ice cream cone and they talk about the things they want to talk about. He's just sitting there with his ice cream and they're planning the destruction of the United States.
Just melting in his mouth, and he's not weighing anything. There's nothing that he's weighing right now. There are people that are running this on purpose, and this is exactly what they want to have happen. From allies and adversaries, right? Pressure grows on Biden. They control everything that he does. It's not enough right now because the new narrative from the West is that Ukraine will die unless we launch attacks at military targets inside Russia. It's not enough to just stop them in Ukraine. No, we need to go to the heart of the matter right now. Here's an example of how this narrative has changed in the Western press. Here's the Telegraph. Ukraine knows it is finished. Then it's Ukraine now knows that it has just months left to survive. But now it's at the bottom of your screen. Without Western armaments, Ukraine may only have months left. See how this flows? But even the weapons aren't enough. So we need long-range weapons to hit inside of Russia because our weapons suck. Here's CNN. Soldiers in Ukraine say U.S.-supplied tanks have made them targets for Russian strikes. The armed forces of Ukraine have complained to CNN about Abrams tanks, saying that these vehicles don't have enough armor to even stop small drone attacks. Russia is destroying these crappy tanks. They're over 30 years old, by the way. Ukraine says the tanks are so bad that when a little rain or moisture or fog get into the tank, they're burning out the crappy electronics inside the tank. Here's CNN.
They hide feverishly as they're a prime target for Russian missiles. But if Moscow knew the trouble these US-supplied Abrams tanks are causing Ukraine, they might not bother and let them keep them. The M1 Abrams, America's main battle tank, a veteran of fighting Saddam in Iraq and desert insurgents. But muddy Ukrainian fields and $500 attack drones, not so much.
There was such a fuss around whether Ukraine would get these, but from the moment the decision was made, yes, through the training, through the time it took to get to the front line, the war has enormously changed.
All 31 America gave are now in one area in the east where Ukraine is losing ground. Training in Germany, the interior in Ukrainian. And while there is gratitude for all US help, they can't pretend this is working.
Його броня на сьогоднішній момент абсолютно недостатня. Вона не захищає екіпаж. Насправді на сьогоднішній момент це війна дронів. Тепер, коли виїжджає танк, його завжди намагаються вразити.
Ціль номер один.
Ціль номер один.
На полі бою, виходить, без захисту екіпаж виживе.
It's sad, of course, that American armor is garbage. Colonel Douglas McGregor has told us this for months here on this show, that our weapons are not up to par, they're insufficient, they were built for old wars. And, of course, the military-industrial complex knows that. They're able to keep building them because we keep paying them for them. And they're not useful. They're being destroyed, and they're out of date. They are anachronistic at this point. And so why are CNN, though, and the New York Times, this is to me more sad about all of this. Why are CNN, the New York Times, and other publications all like within the same 48-hour period, 72-hour period, all simultaneously telling us these things? So curious, isn't it? These news organizations that literally have connections to the intelligence community that get stories fed to them on a spoon. Why are they all on the same page? So curious, isn't it? It's for one clear purpose, of course. What you've been doing isn't working. Time to launch long-range attacks inside of Russia. So you need more proof. Do you need any more proof that they're all in cahoots? The front page of the Financial Times today. NATO's Eastern European air defenses at 5% of required capacity. Yeah, nothing. We're being destroyed. So bad tanks, no air defenses, out of weapons. Ukraine could fall in moments. Yeah. Why are we hearing all of this? You know why? It's because Plan B is now on the table. Plan B, as Eva Bartlett mentioned earlier in the show, when she talked about there's something being cooked up. Could it be Plan B, which is attack Russia directly, deep inside of Russia? Putin knows it. He's not an idiot. He called it out directly. Watch.
Представители стран НАТО, особенно в Европе, особенно в малых странах, они должны вообще отдавать себе отчет, с чем они играют. Они должны помнить о том, что это, как правило, государство с небольшой территорией и с очень плотным населением. И этот фактор, который они должны иметь в виду, прежде чем говорить о нанесении ударов вглубь российской территории. Это серьезная вещь, и мы, конечно, самым внимательным образом наблюдаем за этим. Ну и вообще эта постоянная эскалация может привести к серьезным последствиям. Если эти серьезные последствия будут наступать в Европе, как поведут себя Соединенные Штаты, имея в виду наш приоритет в сфере стратегических вооружений?
We're watching it very closely. Do you think he's bluffing? Again, I don't. Russia overnight just destroyed a NATO staging base in western Ukraine. There is a large amount of weapons, large amount of troops gathered there before being sent to the front lines. And trainers, NATO trainers. Russia fired one of their hypersonic Kinzhal missiles, according to reports, wiped out an entire F-16 loading area, killed over 300 people, including NATO forces from France, Poland, and Baltic countries. They hit the same area back in 2022, by the way. They know exactly. So now this is a clear message to NATO. We see the stuff arriving, the F-16s that you're training these pilots on right now, and you're flying back and forth over Poland and into western Ukraine, and we're just going to destroy that whole area again. Putin has been warning that this was going to happen. Keep provoking him, and you're going to find out. F around and find out. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think NATO is cooking up right now? But they're all on the same page. Blinken in Moldova. All of these news publications saying the same thing. France saying that they're about to send trainers to Ukraine. What is about to happen here? I don't think that they are going to be going home with their tail between their legs saying, we're done. Sorry, we provoked the bear. We poked the bear enough. We were wrong. We're going back home. I think this is going to be a deadly, deadly moment, and they are absolutely playing with fire.
They can't do that because there's too much money on the line for them. I mean, think of all that money that the military-industrial complex would lose out on if we just decided to de-escalate. I mean, peace, that's not profitable.
No. And by the way, peace has been on the... I mean, this is something that Russia said repeatedly. And even Lavrov said, I think over the past 48 hours, we're not the ones holding back peace agreements. We had a signed agreement with Zelensky until the United States and UK got in the way and pulled it off the table. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, I see people in the chat saying, well, Russia's going to, they just want to take over the world and this is going to let that happen. But the thing is, like, when have they, the Soviet Union literally saved the world. Like, they saved the world from the Nazis. We took credit, but they are the ones that did it, right? So they've never had any indication that they want to expand the Soviet Union beyond where they are, right? They even made agreements with Ukraine to be like, look, you can have what you want. Let's have people vote. We'll do it all democratically, and he's really tried to bring peace. It's like you've been sold lies so many times by our government that we have these enemies that end up not really being our enemies. Like, they don't have to be our enemies, and it just frustrates me that people don't pay attention to what's been going on since World War II and the sacrifice that the Soviet Union made for the entire world.
Pay attention to NATO's expansion. Read how read the hidden armies of NATO, the basically the kill squads of NATO. Read Benjamin Abelow's great book, How the West Brought War to Ukraine. That's all you just read. Just read books. Just read the history. Understand it. You won't even say that then. And also, again, Russia wanting to expand and take over Europe. Russia has a massive, massive amount of land. The last thing that they want to do, anyone who understands Russia, is want to even expand further and take over people that aren't already part of that massive diaspora. It's the last thing they want to do. They have enough minerals and resources. We don't. We try to get them from them. Anyway, well, you can have a back and forth discussion, and wherever you fall on liking Putin, hating Putin, it really doesn't matter. But it's about trying to provoke them into a war. And the United States is great at this. We love using false flags. We love trying to provoke people into war to justify wars. I mean, look at 9/11 for crying out loud. Look at the Oklahoma City bombing. Look about the information we knew about Pearl Harbor ahead of time and didn't stop it on purpose. So look at the USS Liberty and the collaboration with Israel to bring us into a war against Egypt in 1967. Remember the Maine, Vietnam, Gulf of Tonkin. So there's so much evidence about the United States provoking people. Look at Syria. Look at the fake gas attacks in Douma and Syria. How many more pieces of evidence do you need? But this time, the CIA, they're being the good guys here. This time, they're not poking the bear. It's ridiculous to think that this time they're being the good guys. Don't fall for it. But they want us to go into war, and this is how they want to keep people home on Election Day, by the way. Don't go out of your house. Russia's coming. They might be coming over the border in Alaska right now. They might be coming down from Canada. They want to take over the world. So you don't need to leave the house. We'll just send you a mail-in ballot so you can vote. Don't worry. We'll take care of it. Oh, and by the way, we'll send you some stimulus money, too, and it'll have Joe Biden's name on the stimulus check. So just stay home. Who are you going to vote for? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Oh, man. It's a world gone mad. But thank you guys for being here so we can actually try to navigate this crazy clown world that we're living in right now, try to make sense of things. It's insanity right now. I sort of laugh at it. We got 30 minutes now. We're hearing now Trump verdict. The jury has reached a decision. 30 minutes. The jury is going to resume deliberations. And we're hearing now that they are about 30 minutes away from coming out and delivering their verdict. They have reached a verdict. So they need 30 minutes right now to fill out the form. For the verdict. So while we wait, we've got more news to get to here. We've got some special guests here. So we've got 30 minutes until they at least fill out the form. And we'll find out what the instructions are and what the verdict will be here, maybe within the next 40 minutes or so. So keep it here. Keep it here on Redacted. We'll be here. We're not going anywhere. Maybe I'll take a bathroom break at some point, but we're going to be here for you guys. Thank you guys so much for subscribing and being a part of our community here on Redacted. We really appreciate it. We've got more news to get to, and so let's do that. And we've got some special guests here that are joining us, and we'll keep our eye on what's happening with this verdict. So don't worry, we'll bring it to you as soon as we have it. But we got some other stories here. We won't do it like cable news where they just spend the next 30 minutes blathering about nonsense. We will actually cover some other stories for you in the meantime. Okay. So that's a little secret of like cable news, like CNN. They'll have 30 people at a round table and they'll all just repeat themselves for the next 30 minutes while they wait. We're not going to do that. We've got other stories we're going to cover for you. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at American Financing, because in today's economic climate, many of us find ourselves facing the challenge of managing monthly expenses. High credit card interest rates trap you in a cycle of debt. I've been there. I was massively in debt a number of years ago. I was really, really stupid with money when I was out of college. $75,000 in debt. And I know how difficult it was. And I had to really build up my financial intelligence and start studying how to be better with my finances. I said, enough is enough. I got to figure this out. I was only paying the minimum balance each month, and it was just miserable. I couldn't get out of this debt cycle. And then I consolidated a bunch of my credit cards into one payment. and I was able to help get myself out of debt as a result of it. It really changed my life. So our friends at American Financing, which is a trusted partner in helping people achieve financial freedom. If you're a homeowner, so if you do own a home, they can actually tap into your home's equity, help you eliminate high interest credit card debt. On average, their customers save $854 per month. It's equivalent to a $10,000 annual raise. This process is straightforward. It's quick. You could close your loan in as little as 10 days by acting today. You might not have to pay your next mortgage payment. It costs nothing to see how much you can save. This opportunity to regain control of your finances is too significant to ignore. Call their 800 number on the screen, 1-866-890-8434 today, or go to the website, americanfinancing.net/redacted. Does Canada want to lower the voting age to get more voters to support the Liberal agenda in Canada? That seems to be the case. Take a listen.
The science and the research is clear that extending voting rights to 16 and 17-year-olds and allowing them to participate in their first election earlier in life when they're at a less volatile stage, typically living at home, typically in classrooms engaging with their teachers.
So 16-year-olds voting in parliamentary elections, voting for the next prime minister? Is something up here? I smell a rat. Let's ask David Creighton. He's an independent journalist who writes at the Post Millennial. He is in Ottawa, Canada. When I saw this story, David, I immediately smelled something dirty here. Part of a broader agenda. You've failed with the current voting populace. So now let's go younger. Let's go down to 16-year-olds. Is that what you see here? What's going on?
Couple of things, because this is once again the Liberals trying to use the back door to introduce legislation that's controversial, to say the least. This is an NDP private members bill, but because the NDP are propping up the Liberal government, they are a de facto coalition partner. This is essentially going to be a government bill, I would argue, just like that crazy government bill that you and Natalie focused on a couple of weeks ago from another NDP member of parliament that wants to ban all oil and gas promotion. This one wants to lower the voting age to 16. Now, I ask you, what kind of skin in the game do you have at 16 to start voting at 16? I think that's a little outrageous. And at the beginning of when you look at this, you think, yes, this is going to benefit Justin Trudeau. Is it going to benefit Justin Trudeau? Perhaps. But did you know he has the lowest voting scores, the lowest popularity among Gen Z? Now, so that doesn't bode well. If he's not attracting the 18 to 22-year-old crowd, and he's not, these people are dead set against Justin Trudeau. What makes him think he's going to find some sort of plethora of voting support amongst 16 to 17-year-olds? I think this is wishful thinking on Justin Trudeau's part. But once again, it shows all these signs of a desperate politician who's looking everywhere to harvest votes. So are we going to lower the voting age so he can attempt to find more voters there?
Well, it seems to me that you're increasing just the overall pool of potentials, right? And if you've got the son or daughter of someone who happens to be a Trudeau supporter, then you're adding potentially here to, in any way that you possibly can to throw additional votes into this. And you're right. I mean, these individuals don't have skin in the game. They're probably currently living at home. They're going to high school. They do not, they're not even allowed to work full time. They're not allowed to drive a car. Under the law, I believe in certain areas, you're not allowed to drive a car. You're certainly not allowed to drink alcohol. So, but you can vote in who leads your country. Like we don't trust you enough to do all of these other things, but we certainly vote. We certainly allow you to vote in for the next prime minister in the parliamentary elections. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, something sinister going on here because 16-year-olds can also get sex change operations in most provinces thanks to Justin Trudeau's pressure on those provinces and pressure on healthcare. So sex changes and voting at 16 seems to be what Canada is becoming about. I don't think that should be what Canada is all about. And as you say, you can't drink at 16. You certainly can't own a firearm. It's hard enough to own one if you're over 18. But it is ridiculous to start to move the voting age. I mean, it required a constitutional amendment in the United States, as you well know, to lower the voting age from 21 to 18. That was a constitutional amendment to do that. Is it that easy in Canada to lower the voting age? I'll tell you, there's a lot of people who want an elected democratized Senate in Canada, and that's going to take a constitutional amendment, and one that's going to be so difficult to achieve, nobody even wants to think about it. But lowering the voting age, is that just going to be done in the sweep of a legislative process of a private member's bill? That's shocking to me, that that's even going to be contemplated.
Well, and she mentioned here at the beginning, which we played for you, that she says the science is in, the research is in. To which many people are saying, oh, you mean the research that the Liberal Party funded to try to prove this? Because I don't know what science she's referring to. I mean, the brain doesn't fully develop until 20 to 25 years old. In fact, with judgment being the last function that the brain develops. So you're going to get people who don't have fully developed judgment to weigh in and vote in these elections. And furthermore, we also know that the individual who is making these decisions is not, certainly not independent. They're going to have the sway of the family that they're living with. These are not independent members of society. They're not out there living on their own, paying taxes. They're certainly not part of the tax infrastructure, right? They're not part of the income tax. So they're in many ways living off of the government. Maybe that's why the Trudeau government wants them to be a part of this, wants them to be able to vote, because they're really living off of what the government is providing for them anyway. And when they go out on their own, they're more apt to make individual decisions and see, wow, this is not the protection. This is not what I thought it was. We don't have the protection of the government paying for my things, providing my housing, and all of those things. So I think it's interesting to think about these independent thinkers. And first of all, the brain is not fully developed even at that age.
This is Trudeau's Canada, isn't it? Trudeau envisions a Canada where everybody is firmly tethered to the federal government in some way or another. Your livelihood, everything about your life, it goes back to federal government mandates. And that's what Justin Trudeau envisions for Canada. And this is in keeping with that vision of Canada. Yeah, let's give the vote to people who aren't even working yet, who are not full-time employees anywhere, who really don't have a lot of responsibilities yet. There should be a period where you're learning and growing, not voting. And I think this is indicative of a government that's gone completely wild in terms of looking for voting sources. But I noted when I was reading about this morning, and it's noteworthy that this story is not gathering a lot of press or television or coverage anywhere in the mainstream media. Once again, they don't want it to gather much information. They don't want people discussing it. But when I see Charlie Angus, and this is the guy, the lunatic MP behind the other private members' bill to ban any kind of advertising or promotion, including a bumper sticker promoting the oil and gas industry in Canada. When I see Charlie Angus out there saying, this is a great bill, let's support it, I'm saying, hold on, let's have some caution. Because when Charlie Angus is behind anything, that's bad news.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And I've seen a lot of criticism of this. There's a couple of different points that I wanted to bring up. They're really indoctrinating our young children at a very, very young age. And Trudeau has been very, very public about that. And also more kids are born in cities, right? More kids are born in cities than rural areas. And of course, leans more liberal. Certainly. And so you have more children might vote liberal, might vote for Trudeau. And they are more liberally minded when you're younger. I mean, that's just the way it goes. A lot of kids are, they buy into the sort of climate alarmism. They buy into that propaganda. And then once they get out on their own and they realize, wait a second, the government is screwing me. The government is really screwing me over. They tend to shift more conservatively. That's usually what happens. So get them while they're young. We'll pay for your we'll pay for your sex change operations. Vote for Trudeau.
And that's exactly what Trudeau has done to the schools, from elementary school onward throughout junior high and high school. Children are being indoctrinated in gender ideology, and especially in the LGBTQ ideology. I mean, it's Pride season all year round at schools. The Pride flag, not just in June, it's flying throughout the year. And the sex education is stuff that is simply pornographic. And this is the stuff that's being shoved down children's faces. I think The result might be, though, they throw up and they say, I've had enough of indoctrination. I've had enough of Justin Trudeau, and I'm not putting up with the propaganda anymore. I hope and I pray that's the response we get from these kids when they get out of this indoctrination. And a lot of them are going through it and saying, I've had enough of it. I hope that's the response. But what Trudeau wants is an entire generation indoctrinated in capital L liberal values, which today are woke, capital W, woke values. It's not small L liberalism anymore coming from Justin Trudeau. It is dangerous far left ideology, and that's what our children are exposed to on a daily basis in school. So yes, it's a danger, it's a hazard, it's potentially horrible in terms of the voting process, but I do think even these kids have had enough.
Well, and I think, you're right about the schools, and that's where I think they would be told how they're going to vote as well, right from the teachers, right from the teachers who are pushing an agenda on these children, telling them now you have the power to vote. And imagine going to social studies class where they're pushing an agenda on them on a daily basis, not allowing them to think freely and think critically about these issues, but being told by these teachers who are also pushing this woke agenda on these children, here's how you should vote. And now that you have the opportunity to vote at 16 years old, we're going to take a school bus trip to the voting booths today. And I hope you vote the right way, which is vote for Justin Trudeau. I can see it happening right before our eyes, David. We're wise to it. We're hip to it. We understand what's going on. David Creighton, who writes at the Post Millennial, has got a great YouTube channel as well. Creighton's Right. Always great to have David's perspective from Canada. Thank you so much, David. Great to see you.
Thank you again, Clayton.
Thank you, David. And you don't have to worry about what's going on up there right now with Trump because, you got Trudeau, but we've got the drama unfolding right now in New York City, which we are keeping our eye on right now. The judge's clerk has entered the courtroom. The jury just about 10 minutes ago said that they have reached a verdict. They asked for the form to fill out. They said they'll need about 30 minutes to fill out this form. And then they will, of course, file back into the courtroom, and they will then read the verdict. The judge will read the verdict and confirm it. So we will have that for you in mere moments. It seems like maybe in the next 15 minutes we should have a verdict on that front. Again, the judge's clerk has just entered the courtroom. The district attorney has also entered the courtroom. Donald Trump is sitting there waiting for this. They won't allow, of course, there's no cameras in there. So we're getting this from the court reporters who are inside right now, but the jury has not returned yet. They're still filling out this form again, so maybe another 15 minutes or so until they are back in the courtroom, but we'll have that for you in a moment. But we've got another guest for you we want to get to here in a second because we're waiting probably another 15, 20 minutes for this verdict to be read, but we will get there in a minute. So we're going to talk about Haiti in the meantime. We're not going to keep you waiting, just blathering on about people in the courtroom. We've got real news about a possible invasion of Haiti. And this is the United States has been pushing and pushing and pushing to go in and destabilize another country. And that country is Haiti. And they're trying to do that. We're going to get there in a second. But first, gold right now at an all-time high. We're seeing silver at a 12-year high right now. And we are in the moment where you're going to see President Putin of Russia and Chinese President Xi Jinping. They've come together and they are actively going to war against the U.S. dollar. The seizing of assets, the hundreds of billions of dollars of assets that have now been seized by the United States against Russia, Russia turning around and doing the very same thing. As a reserve currency of the world, which is the US dollar, you don't seize hundreds of billions of dollars in the reserve currency of the world. You don't do it if you don't believe. The only reason you do it is if you don't think that it's the reserve currency of the world. So now that the BRICS nations are aligning, they're building their currency backed by gold and commodities. You're seeing war being waged against the U.S. dollar in a big, big way. That's why we're seeing commodities. That's why we're seeing gold surging right now and central banks buying up as much gold as they can get their hands on. So we are right now in a commodities super squeeze. We don't have enough gold. We don't have enough silver, which is being used in all sorts of electronics and solar panels and everything else. And so we definitely need it right now. And our friends at Lear Capital can help you get set up actually investing in gold, investing in silver. You can call their 800 number. They're great American patriots. They will jump on the phone with you. They're not from some call center in India. They're in the United States. They have a great team. We just we transferred our IRA over to a gold-backed IRA where we're able to invest in gold and silver inside of our self-directed IRA. Get on the phone with them and call their 800 number, 800-613-3557, or go to learredacted.com to get up to $15,000 in free bonus medals with a qualified purchase. And, you know, silver doesn't get talked about as much as gold does. But I'm telling you right now, silver is one of the fantastic assets that you need to get your hands on, because again, it is relatively inexpensive when you compare it to the price of gold right now, but it's at a 12-year high. And a number of silver experts that I've spoken to believe it's going to hit $50 for an ounce of gold. $50 right now, it's in the $30 range. So again, silver is highly undervalued, in my opinion, compared to gold. And it's used in all of these components, again, from solar panels to cell phones, and it's also a currency. So I would highly suggest you talk to them about silver as well. Anyway, go to learredacted.com, learredacted.com. Well, Haiti has a new interim prime minister, not one picked by the voters of Haiti, of course. No, one that has been selected by the Biden administration, of course. This all comes just after 2 missionaries from the United States were killed in Haiti. Of course, the Biden administration would love nothing more than to use that as a catalyst for the invasion of Haiti. So we have an interim prime minister picked by the Biden administration who used to work under Bill Clinton. And we have 2 missionaries now killed in Haiti. This justification for an invasion of Haiti. Of course, we would love nothing more than to go in there and take over that country. That is exactly where Dan Cohen's journalism has been focused over the last few years. Dan Cohen from Uncaptured Media has just released a brand new documentary on Haiti, which we'll get to here in a moment, but a lot of developing stories out of Haiti that we wanted to bring Dan on to talk about. Really one of the few journalists in the world covering this story. This is why we think it's so important to bring to you here on Redacted. Dan, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Always good to be with you, Clayton.
So we'll get to your documentary here in a moment. I know it's been something you and Kim Ives have been working on for many years, and a lot of work from independent journalism to go into this great piece. So we'll talk about that. But first, we got to talk about, obviously, what's been going on over the past few days. So first of all, let's talk about this new interim prime minister. I mentioned the Clinton connection here, but this is not somebody selected by the Haitian people.
Right. He's the prime minister in Haiti is always appointed by the president. However, Haiti does not have a president. Its last president, Jovenel Moise, was assassinated in what is still an unsolved mystery, though has basically fingerprints of the oligarchs in Haiti that are tied to the U.S. all over it. And there's not much interest in solving it in Washington, at least publicly. So that really speaks volumes. So in its place, the U.S. through CARICOM has cobbled together something called the Transitional Presidential Council, which is several political figures from the same old political class in Haiti that are in a sort of power-sharing agreement, and they are all obliged to support this U.S.-backed invasion of Haiti. So they're all just acting as hood ornaments for the tanks coming in, figuratively speaking. So that is who appointed this new prime minister, Gary Coney, who's actually an old prime minister. He was the prime minister for 8 months, from 2011 to 2012, when basically Hillary Clinton was running the show. And just before that, he was Bill Clinton's bagman when Bill Clinton was the UN special envoy to Haiti in the aftermath of the earthquake. So he's basically just another puppet from the same political class, and the same political class that has made Haiti into what it is today is now claiming they have the solution, which is a foreign invasion supported by an unelected government.
So you talked about after the earthquake, he was given $13 billion, I believe, to distribute in Haiti to help the people of Haiti. What happened to that money?
Yeah, there was more than $13 billion raised, and all kinds of feel-good moments from the international community that were going to help Haiti in the aftermath of this horrific natural disaster. And in fact, the vast majority, in fact, 99% of that money just went to foreign NGOs. It just got washed right back into the coffers of NGOs here in Washington. So kind of like how Ukraine is a big money laundering scheme, the Haiti aid project in the aftermath of the earthquake was too. Only 1% of that $13+ billion went to the Haitian government. And there are entire books written about what a massive swindle this was.
Now we have these 2 missionaries also killed from the United States. What happened here, and how is the Biden administration, the rhetoric coming out of Washington, D.C., being used to justify sending in military assistance from the United States to help stabilize this country?
Yeah, so on May 23rd, there were 2 young American missionaries named David Lloyd III and Natalie Baker Lloyd. They were a young couple, and they were killed in a home, in the compound they live in. And it's still not absolutely 100% certain what happened. But as best we can tell, and this is from accounts that have been given both by David Lloyd's father and by the owner of a local orphanage in this area of Cana, where these killings happened. There was an armed group called the Pier 6 gang that went and basically robbed them, tied them up, robbed them, just tried to clean out the place. They left, and David Lloyd was on his, this is according to the father, was on the phone with his father in the United States saying what had happened. And then another armed group came, and apparently they were under the impression that it was the same guys. So somebody, it seems, opened fire on that armed group, and the armed group that was outside returned fire. Now, that armed group turned out to be the local leader, a guy named Jeff, who is part of what's called the Vive Ensemble coalition, and generally speaks in quite anti-imperialist terms, and is not known to be some kind of killer. But I think what I understand is one of his men was shot, so he returned fire. So it was basically just a big, unfortunate and very sad mistake in which these 2 young missionaries were killed in a very horrific way. But the investigation, there hasn't been a real investigation done. That was immediately seized upon and exploited, particularly by Republican members of Congress, Josh Hawley, for example, who are saying, Biden is stalling.
You didn't have your glasses on either. I don't know if your
paraphrasing.
Glasses are on right now.
Biden is stalling on, this intervention into Haiti. We're just abandoning Haiti, and we need to be able to get police in there to do the job. So there's been some kind of holdup from Republican members of Congress to get full funding for the foreign invasion that the Biden administration is trying to organize into Haiti.
Dan, I'm sorry.
That tragic incident was exploited.
Sorry, Dan. Sorry about that, Dan. We'll have to come back to Dan and see if he can hang out or not. But we've got a verdict now in the Trump hush money trial that just came in. So we'll have to get back to Dan. I apologize on that. But we wanted to bring to you what we're hearing from the courtroom right now. Trump has been found guilty of falsifying business records in the hush money scheme. So a Manhattan jury has found Donald Trump guilty of falsifying business records in connection to the Stormy Daniels hush money scheme. He had 34 counts of falsifying business records. And the jury's verdict is still being read in court right now. So on count 1, guilty. On count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty. Count 5, guilty. There's 34 to go through, but on the first 5 right now, guilty. Of the first, now going through all of them. Count 6, guilty. Count 7, guilty. Count 8, guilty. Count 9, guilty. Count 10, guilty. Count 11, guilty. 12, guilty. 13, guilty. 14, guilty. 15, guilty. 16, guilty. 17, guilty. 18, guilty. 19, guilty. 20, guilty. Count 21, guilty. 22, guilty. 23, guilty. Count 24, guilty. Count 25, guilty. Count 26, guilty. Count 27, guilty. Count 28, guilty. 29, guilty. 30, guilty. 31, guilty. 32, guilty. 33, guilty. And finally, the last count, count 34, guilty.
I guess they saw a lot of water and rain outside.
To his metaphor earlier, and so while this has happened, while this guilty verdict is being read, President Biden has given permission to Ukraine to use weapons inside of Russia. So just so you understand how all of this is playing out right now. See, they're playing us like fools. 34, if you're just tuning in, President Trump has been found guilty on all counts. From 11 invoices, 12 vouchers, 11 checks that made up Trump's money reimbursement payments to Michael Cohen, who fronted the $130,000 to pay off adult film star Stormy Daniels. So 11 different invoices, 12 vouchers, and 11 different checks. All of those counted as counts 1 through 34. Guilty. And the President of the United States, President Biden, and the First Lady heading to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, as we speak. And the out-of-town press team is now following the President of the United States to Rehoboth Beach. So they're going to their beach house in Rehoboth Beach while this unfolds. And President Biden will not speak about the verdict. Will not speak about it anymore, even though he originally said he would, because he's going to the beach right now. So once again, Donald Trump has been found guilty. What does this mean now for sentencing? What does this mean for prison time? This will be up to the judge. And Trump's attorney wants the jury polled on the verdict to find out how they voted and find out their response. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, says, yes, they want them polled. So again, there's no cameras in the courtroom, and the jurors responded yes to finding Trump guilty on all 34 charges right now. 34 charges. Unbelievable.
Well, and there's no reason why a trial of a president should not have been televised. That should have been televised so that people could see exactly what was going on in that courtroom.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the Ghislaine Maxwell trial should have been televised. I mean, I think in 2024, why don't we have this now?
Right. Simpson trial was televised.
Yeah. Wow. I think we're waiting to find out now how the jury polled on this and what the response will be. Guys, what's your response? Just thinking about this and what this means for this election. What does it mean for protests? What does it mean for the fabric of the country? I mean, this is an unbelievable moment.
I have questions because I don't understand how he can say that it'll be unanimous with only 4 of 7 jurors. Say guilty. Does that happen?
What the unanimous was, what they were saying, because I saw this broke down yesterday. What they meant by the unanimous, it doesn't have to be unanimous, meant that you don't have to find him guilty on all 34 counts if you find him guilty on some of them. So it's like this jury still had to agree on each one, but they didn't have to agree on all of them.
But the judge said specifically only 4 of 7 jurors had to find him guilty in order for it to be unanimous. Wasn't there something about that, Clayton?
Yeah, on the different counts, right? So when you have, because all of them, it didn't matter to have all the jurors voting yes on all of the counts. They could be broken down separately, and therefore you could have a unanimous verdict because 4 jurors found this particular count guilty, 4 jurors found this particular count. Remember, there's 34 to pick from. But
has that ever happened before? Is that unprecedented?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that happening.
In New York, they can do that.
Oh.
So This is really a remarkable moment. If you think about the judicial system in New York, it's absolutely broken. And, now we're going to see what happens in this election. What happens with this judge? Will this judge call for jail time? Now, as I pointed out before, it's incredibly rare in New York. Almost never happens for a judge to sentence somebody to prison time for this type of a crime. So will this judge do it? Now, this judge, of course, we know is compromised. His own daughter, for crying out loud, has a client, Kamala Harris, as part of her consulting firm. Lauren Mershon is a Democratic political consultant whose, again, one of her clients is Kamala Harris. How do you not recuse yourself? So will Judge Mershon go for prison time in this, time behind bars? Again, prison time is incredibly rare for people who are convicted in New York State of felony falsification of business records.
I mean, isn't this something like if it weren't a Democratic, administration, wouldn't the Attorney General step in on something like this if a judge was outright should recuse himself but isn't and has like ties like that? Like, shouldn't that be an Attorney General thing to step in and be like, hey, no, this can't happen because that's bias?
It's not federal. You have a federal Attorney General. You don't have. This is a state case. So you have a Manhattan District Attorney. This is not a federal.
I thought the Attorney General was over all state attorneys, but
not judges. So that it would be because it would be like the appeals court of New York would have to oversee that.
The prosecutors.
The
Manhattan District Attorney, the prosecutors, yes, right, and picking those individuals, but not the judge.
So what we're getting at is a judge actually has ultimate power over, like if they choose to abuse power, they can just abuse power all they want. There's no checks and balances in place to take care of a judge like this that should have recused himself.
Well, I mean, clearly this judge should have recused himself, but
right.
Mike Lee, Representative Mike Lee, just moments ago saying, "Congratulations, progressives. You just guaranteed Trump's election." 34. So if you're just tuning in, President Trump has been found guilty on 34 counts. Specifically on the 11 invoices, the 12 vouchers, the 11 checks that were signed and made out that make up Trump's monthly reimbursement payments to Michael Cohen, who fronted the $130,000 to pay adult film star Stormy Daniels. Again, all 34 counts, they found him guilty. And Trump's attorneys wanted the jury polled to find out who voted yes. And Trump's attorneys, Todd Blanche, said, yes, we'd like to know which individuals voted for which counts and all of that. Now, the sentencing date is set for July 11th. Judge Mershon will set a sentencing hearing for July 11th at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And the jury has now been excused. And he said, I do want to personally thank you for your service. And Trump turned to watch the jury as each member then confirmed the verdict. So as each of them said, yes, I did vote that, he looked over at each of them as each of the member panel confirmed their verdict. And then President Trump turned back and faced the judge and just stared him down, basically just looked straight at the judge for the rest of it. So sentencing, will he face prison time? That's the question. Again, it's incredibly rare for falsifying business records in the state of New York for anyone to do prison time. So will he make an example of him? It's up to Judge Mershon.
Well, and like you're saying, it's extremely rare, but this would be like the first time in American history that a president, a former president, is put in jail over these kind of charges. Like, that's insane.
And if you think about the hypocrisy of what we now know through Burisma, through Ukraine, and the money laundering scheme that the Biden administration cooked up inside of Ukraine to fire a prosecutor that was looking into his son, Hunter Biden. I mean, I'm sorry, but does this even come close to that? Does this even come close to that? It's a remarkable moment. 235 years in American history.
Well,
this has never happened.
That's the thing. Like, I don't think the Biden administration understands like exactly what has happened here, but they have set a precedent, because now once this is appealed and if this goes away or doesn't go away, you think that if Trump gets in office, he's not going to go after them now. And this is going to be a thing where now you're going to have a completely different system where political opponents are going after political opponents, which I honestly, for crimes that the Biden administration has committed overseas, I'm for it. I'm all for it. If there's legitimate charges, but I don't feel like a lot of this was legitimate. But if there are legitimate charges, they should pay the price. And I hope that that precedent is set so that, like, if Trump gets elected, okay, now we're going to go after them for their crimes, and we see that their actual real crimes that, you know, had an effect on COVID, had an effect on Ukraine, all the stuff that's happening right now.
No,
China.
but they wanted, and you know, progressives, liberals wanted this. They wanted this label placed on President Trump: convicted, convicted felon. They want that moniker so that whenever they introduce him now, whenever they run television ads, they can say, you know, the choice is clear. President Biden, who likes to eat ice cream and ride bicycles, he likes to sniff little girls. That's fine. But would you rather vote for President Biden, who brings America together over ice cream, or a convicted felon?
And Biden's such a sweet old man that they didn't even convict him on the classified documents because he's too old and feeble and can't go to trial. So, you know, he's just a sweet old man.
But guys, all of this is theater, because just literally in the moments that we were watching this and the jury releasing this verdict, the United States has given authorization to Ukraine to strike inside of Russia. And also about 35 minutes ago, the United States and the UK launched warplanes, dropping bombs on Yemen, on the Yemeni capital of Sana'a. So the United States and UK timed it perfectly, launched an attack on Yemen, on the capital, and authorized Ukraine to attack Russia inside of Russia. So again,
well, and
don't
also
fall for it.
What you're saying, with U.S. weapons, meaning anything that lands over there now will have United States logos on it. They will know it's our weapons, and they're going to be saying, "Oh yeah, those precision strikes came from Ukraine." Bullshit. They don't even know how to fire this stuff. They don't even know how to use our weapons. So my guess is, if they're authorizing that, that means they're authorizing U.S. soldiers to be firing that stuff in because they know how to use it.
Right. Charlie Kirk tweeting moments ago. I like this. He says, today's sham verdict shows Democrats are still seeking retribution from Trump ruining Hillary's glass ceiling party in 2016. They started this vile cycle, and they act shocked and appalled when Trump tells us he will be our retribution. Stay peaceful. Our revenge is coming. So stay peaceful, everyone. We've got until November. And it's going to be a dark day for progressives in Washington. Unbelievable. They made their own bed. I mean, you know, you can lie in it now, basically. Guilty on all counts. Alvin Bragg should be disbarred. That's what Megyn Kelly says. They will rue the day they unleashed this lawfare to corrupt a presidential election. This is really an unbelievable a moment. I don't know how you see it elsewise. Any other way. 34 counts. Former president of the United States. President Trump just moments ago calls the show trial a disgrace and a rigged trial, he said, as he left the courtroom. And he grabbed his son Eric's hand and shook it rapidly. Trump is red in the face. And both President Trump and Eric Trump looked visibly upset. Regardless of how strong of a person you are, I mean, you're going to be visibly upset on any number of levels, right? About the rigged trial, the judge that didn't recuse himself, to the verdict. And again, sentencing is set for July 11th. Thank you guys so much for subscribing and being a part of our show here on Redacted. We are live every day, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the news that the mainstream media ignores. Natalie's not feeling well today, otherwise she'd be here with me. David and Philip are here on the team, behind the scenes, running the show.
We lost David, but I'm still with you.
Oh, okay. You're still here. It's remarkable. I mean, I just thinking back to all the times that I had a chance to interview President Trump. I mean, I was thinking about it this afternoon. He was never afraid to answer questions, and any questions that I would throw to him, he would answer. I mean, I've interviewed him dozens of times, and I've never seen him get like visibly flustered, and I have to imagine reading these reports of him coming out of this courtroom with his face red and he's furious, that this has really affected him in a deep way. And again, if he faces prison time, all bets are off. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Again, I remind you all that this is very, very rare for prison time for a falsification records case in the state of New York. But this judge who didn't recuse himself could use this as an example. So we have to wait till the middle of July now for sentencing. And then what? So then if sentencing is, okay, you'll report to a jail, what, in November? September? So you can't campaign? I can't imagine he's going to allow prison time for this guy, for President Trump. Can you imagine? How many of you guys watching right now think, again, it's incredibly rare for a New York falsifications crime, a document falsification verdict, for that person to end up behind bars. It doesn't happen for a white collar crime like this. As Congressman Thomas Massey tweeted moments ago, guilty on 34 counts, but no underlying crime. Partisan hacks serving as judges, investigators, prosecutors have turned our legal system into a farce at both the state and federal level. And President Trump, just moments ago, coming out saying the real verdict will be November 5th by the people. The whole country is being rigged right now. And the Biden administration is in order to hurt or wound a political opponent. Let me see if we can get this audio for you guys here in a second. Philip, if you can do that on the old... So let me know if we're able to do this here. Are you able to hear that, Philip?
Not really. It's pretty quiet.
Oh, okay. So I'm just going to turn my microphone here because...
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
So that's President Trump just moments ago walking out. Yelling, "Are you going to jail?" What an idiot question to ask. Are you going to jail? Partisan media, of course. What an idiot question that is. Are you going to jail? Are you going to jail? I don't know. I'm not the judge. The judge will decide that on July 11th at the sentencing. So now we got to wait a month and a half for the judge to come out and sentence him. And again, I remind you that it's incredibly rare for a business falsification records crime, a white-collar crime, to have prison time in the state of New York. So the first time in American history that we have a convicted felon as a president, former president. And now are we going to have a new precedent, which is this is the first president to go to prison? Unbelievable. So if you're just joining us, President Trump has been found guilty in all 34 counts. And it's unbelievable. At the same moment that this was being read, the Biden administration gave the green light to Ukraine to attack Russia inside of Russia. Remember, it's not Ukraine attacking Russia. It's NATO. It's us. There are no Ukrainians left. They've killed them all. Zelensky has killed all of them. Okay? So the 600,000 Ukrainians dead, soldiers, it's American, Polish, French trainers putting in coordinates, and then a monkey is pressing a button. That's what's happening right now. And so while you were watching this verdict, the Biden administration gave authorization to attack Russia. And at the same time, United Kingdom and American warplanes just attacked the capital of Yemen simultaneously. Welcome to World War III. They're playing us for, they're absolutely playing us for fools. I warned you 2 hours ago before this verdict was being read that NATO was cooking up something. As journalist Eva Bartlett was saying, we knew that this was coming. They're getting all on the same page. If you're Russia tonight, what are you about to do? If you're in a European country right now, I'd watch out. Are your leaders, like Germany, by the way, just did a 180. Olaf Scholz over the past 48 hours said, yeah, we were totally against, attacking Russia inside of Russia, but yeah, we've come around on that idea now. What kind of political pressure did they receive from their NATO friends in the United States and the UK? France as well, Poland as well. The list is like 12 countries now that are all on the same page to attack Russia inside of Russia.
I think all of Scandinavia, I think Finland, Norway, I think Sweden, I think all of them have said that their weapons are fine to use. They're awful close to Russia for that.
President Biden just left and went to Rehoboth Beach for a beach weekend. So he's out of here with Jill. They just went to Rehoboth Beach to get some ice cream and allow World War III to unfold. Well, so again, we're waiting till July to see what the sentencing will be. Guys, thank you guys for subscribing, whether you're watching us on Rumble, whether you're watching us on YouTube. Again, we're live Monday through Thursday. I really appreciate you joining us here. We will continue to watch this drama unfold. Don't be fooled, and don't be just focusing on the Trump side of this. Watch what the Biden administration is doing right now to get us into a war, into a massive war, a kinetic hot war with Russia. And by the way, this is how they will, again, this is how they will keep you home on election day. Mail-in ballots. You don't have to go to the polls. Stay home, they'll tell you. They tried COVID before. They tried lockdowns before. They're going to try this now. They're going to cancel the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. They've already been talking about having Biden be a phone-in candidate. So on the DNC as a nominee, so they don't have to have the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, because it will be an absolute shit show with the tens of thousands of illegal immigrants that are now in Chicago. There's going to be a massive war in that city between the people whose homes have been destroyed and pushed out and communities overrun by illegal immigrants. They're one gunshot away from a massive war breaking out, and they want that on the back doorstep of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. It's going to be a disaster. So this is how they'll keep you home in the fall, guys. They don't want you driving.
You know what
There's mail-in ballots. You'll be fine to vote, and they'll send you a stimulus check too.
You know what I'm not looking forward to is the meltdowns that we're going to see now from all the people coming out, you know, the Mark Hamills and all that about Trump being a convicted felon, and Joe Biden be like, well, I was going to debate him, but I don't debate convicted felons. You know, like all this, the narrative is just going to get crazy on social media right now. With
CNN
people.
will say we can't have a televised debate for the presidency anymore. Our presidential debate will have to be canceled now because we can't, in good conscience, allow a convicted felon to be on stage with a pedophile.
Yep. And Rachel Maddow is going to love that one. She's like, I can't show you his speech. He is now a convicted felon. Now she can justify her. Not showing him.
But let's also be clear. I'm definitely worried about how the liberals are going to flip out and say what they're going to say. But I'm also worried about the nut jobs on the right.
Yeah,
because the nut jobs on the right are. I'm really worried what they're going to do.
Well, and that's part of like what I was saying, like with the narrative now that's going to be with the left really going out there and calling him a felon. That's going to supercharge the right. And we're going to have, the people are going to come to blows over this. This is not going to be just a little argument online. This is going to be big. And there are nuts on both sides.
Oh, well, of course. And there's 100 million Americans that don't vote for either of these corrupt parties. Remember the Uniparty? It's, oh yeah, I'm right there with you. They're both corrupt. Both of these parties are corrupt, and they're going to use it to their political advantage. So don't fall for it. Don't fall for it in these moments. Again, look at the tricks that they're going to use right now. Watch how they're going to use this. Both sides. Just pay attention and be smart about it. And be a critical thinker, right? Be a critical thinker and see how they're going to use this. They're going to use this to their advantage in many, many ways. And don't fall for it.
And we've been saying this for years on this show. It's like when you see them in Congress or in the Senate and they're arguing over this legislation and it's all public and Mitch McConnell's coming out and they're saying this, they want you to pay attention to what they're showing you because they don't want you to see what they're doing in the dark of night behind closed doors.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
They've got something. Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing right now against Russia. Mm-hmm. So the neocon, when I'm talking about the Lindsey Grahams, I'm talking about the nuts on the right. I'm talking about the Lindsey Grahams. I'm talking about the Mike McCalls. I'm talking about the neocons who want us to go into war with Russia. So they pinpointed this moment. So at the moment that the jury is reading this verdict, they're giving authorization to NATO and Ukraine to launch weapons inside of Russia. And they're bombing the capital of Yemen within the same 30-minute window. So these neocons and Joe Biden are in lockstep. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, these are the corrupt people I'm talking about. You have a few members of the right. You have a few members on the Republican side, like friend of the show, Congressman Thomas Massie, of course, who's been on our show many times, Senator Rand Paul. You have a few of them. I can count them on one hand.
Justin Amash.
Yeah, I can count them on one hand.
Mm-hmm.
Who want us out of these wars and who don't want us to fall for it. I just hope that they don't get caught up in this in such a way that we don't see what they're doing, and that's what I worry about in these moments.
Well, and also there's some that are just like they're so good on like 90% of the issues, but then they are complete war hawks when it comes to war. It's like you watch them and they're like, oh yeah, they talk all this game and all this good stuff about certain things, and you're like, yes, yes, yes. And then they're like, but we got to go bomb this place. It drives me insane. It's like that's the part where the military industrial complex, that's where they all agree. Almost all of them, like 99% of them are lockstep when it comes to war.
And make no mistake about it, I think they may send him to jail. I've said this before, and I'll say it again if you're just joining us here. Many of you are. remember, this is a white collar crime in New York, and in New York, it's incredibly rare for anyone to be sentenced to jail time as a result of a falsification of business records felony. So we know that the sentencing is on July the 11th, and whether or not this judge will then ask for jail time for President Trump. And the RNC convention was supposed to start on July 15th. So this is 4 days before the convention. Now,
Well,
I'm set.
and I'll tell you what, and
I'm set to go to
if
the
that judge convicts. Yeah, if that judge convicts and puts Trump in jail, that guy is probably not ever going to be able to walk out of his house without a shit ton of security again.
Well, he already
You know what
has.
I
I
mean?
mean, yeah, there's been a number of threats against him over the past couple of weeks.
And here's the thing, like, I don't think like people wouldn't be that pissed off if it was legitimate. If this was a legitimate thing and they brought evidence, the case was televised, it was transparent from the beginning. People could understand, like, okay, yeah, there's convictions there. We're all on board. I mean, look at there's like what happened to Bill Clinton with the Monica Lewinsky thing. Like, everybody's like, okay, the evidence is there. Like, you can't deny it anymore, and they dealt with it. And nobody was getting death threats after that, But like, when you have somebody that is this corrupt, then that's what's going to happen, and it's so obvious that it's corruption at this point.
So what's Trump's next move then, right? It's his attorneys will then pursue an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. And of course, there is a precedent from Bush v. Gore from the contested election. And, you'll have the argument then is that Manhattan's trial court violates the federal jurisdiction and a due process rights for a presidential election. And that is the precedent set by the Supreme Court in Bush v. Gore, right? Which is, we can't allow changes to the voting system. And so if you're going to put President Trump in prison on July 11th at a sentencing, you're in violation of the voting system during a presidential election. So I guess that's the next piece, right? Is the Supreme Court, I mean, that would be the next, is an appeal to the Supreme Court. Yeah. Let us know what you think of this, guys, in the chat room here. A lot of people, Jeff Harkness, nice to see you. The people have to make the next move. Dan L says,
as long as they make the smart
handpicked
move.
Jury. Stop Communism says, I think Vivek is Trump's backup plan or backup. People say we need to get out and protest. Other people saying this is the United States of Israel. George Soros, I guess, yeah. Ford Darja says, thank you, Redacted. Love from Finland. Justice will win after all. I'm praying for you guys up there in Finland. I mean, my God, I don't know what did your leaders do? Holy smokes. Like, want to get into a war with Russia?
Well, it's like
Aligning
during
yourselves with
COVID, the
NATO?
whole world went mad. I don't understand like what happened to the world. It's like the world went mad, and now it's like they're all coming together with this treaty or WHO treaty, and they're like, it's like all these governments are turning on the people.
It's yeah. I mean, people have to get out and vote. What's the next move? I mean, the next move is you take it to the Supreme Court. But again, sentencing on July 11th, 4 days before the Republican National Convention, and I'm set to go to the convention in Milwaukee. So redacted plan to go. That was in my plans. And trying to bring the show to the Republican National Convention. We were invited, and so now will there be a convention? without the nominee? Why have a convention? The guy, your guy is not there. He'll be. I mean, you're literally playing. I mean, this is election interference. I don't know how else to read it, because now all of the planning lining up for the Republicans to nominate or choose their nominee on the floor of the convention. And if your nominee is not there, I guess they'll do it the way the DNC does it, with President Biden not being there, if they're going to cancel theirs in Chicago and have it just be remote like they did in COVID. I mean, we're in dangerous territory right now. We're in totally new. I mean, you know, I'm a student of history. I was a history major. I love American history. There's nothing like this. There's nothing like this. Just racking my brain to think what other unbelievable moments we've had. You've certainly had people that didn't want to be president of the United States that were just put forward on ballots and became president of the United States. Like,
well, and I want to know what the difference.
Grover Cleveland.
What
you
the
know?
Yeah, I want to know what the real difference is. You know, I understand that it was more in your face with World War II, with what Germany was doing. But what really is the difference of what the United States is doing by expanding the empire? We're just doing it. We're just doing it under the guise of spreading peace and democracy. But we're basically doing the same thing. We're expanding our empire as far as we can. It's like, what really is the difference of what we're doing? And at some point, it's going to have to crumble. We've been doing this for far too long. We've been, you know, and the thing is, I think that we're seeing it crumble because of the desperation we're seeing in both parties in trying to make these things happen so fast, opening this border so fast, you know, declaring war with Russia. I mean, or okaying shooting missiles into Russia when we know that they have a nuclear arsenal as good as, if not better than our own. Like, it just makes zero sense why they're doing this. But I think it's like, they must see something that we don't, or something, like, you know, because they're like pushing for the end.
Well, with a wide open borders and 43 million, illegal immigrants into the United States. As Karl Rove said earlier today, this could cost him Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, now that he's been found guilty based on the numbers and the polling data. These swing states. Pennsylvania, of course, a very important swing state. Wisconsin, very important swing state. So we have to wait till July 11th. I bet you're going to see the president out tomorrow. President Trump will get more from him and see what he has to say tomorrow. It's nighttime now in New York City, of course, and so I'm sure he's heading back to Trump Tower and not going to want to face any more reporters. Just looking at his legal team coming out and their faces just totally dejected. Seeing Alina's face and the rest of them, they were just all 34 counts guilty. So Judgment Day, guys. July 11th is sentencing day for President Trump. Will he face jail time? What will happen to the Republican National Convention on July 15th? 4 days later, will they cancel it? Will they put him in jail before the Republican National Convention? Will he not get any jail time at all? Will this go to the Supreme Court? You know, about 6 months ago, when Colonel Douglas McGregor on our show said he didn't believe we were going to have an election in 2024, it's looking increasingly likely, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it was a hard pill to swallow, but you know, again, they tried COVID, they tried lockdowns, they tried to keep us home, tried to have us have mail-in ballots. Now we push for a war against Russia, and you have a former president who could face jail time. It looks like we're heading to create something crazy.
And generals become generals, like Colonel McGregor. They become generals because they're strategists, because they are amazing strategists. So they understand strategy and they understand patterns. And so they can look at something like this and see a completely different thing than we would see. So, you know, I wonder the same thing. I don't know that there'll be an election either, just because, I mean, the two wars, like, because we know that they want a war with Iran too. And it's like, well, if we can't get the war with Iran, we got one with Russia. So it's like, we've got to fall back. Either way, we're going to have a war. And then just looking at this, like this unprecedented stuff, like, I don't know, it's like, I remember in my lifetime, every time there's an election, everybody's like, oh, this is the most important election of our lifetime. But I feel like this time period really is like a turning point in history.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that history books is going to look back on, and we're not going to be looked kindly upon for what we're doing in this world, meaning the United States.
Well, we titled today's show, Breaking, Trump Jury Reaches Verdict, Results Moment Away. It was not the sexiest title of the day, but it's the accurate one. And Trump has been found guilty now on 34 counts. First time in American history that a president of the United States, a former president of the United States, has been found guilty. Sentencing is on July 11th. That's when we will find out whether or not he has jail time. And again, the Republican National Convention is 4 days later, July 15th. So will it be canceled? Will he be there? Will he be in jail? All of these questions are lingering tonight. On this, the 30th day of May, 2024. Thank you guys so much for subscribing to our channel here at Redacted. We cover the stories the mainstream media ignores or that are largely redacted. That was the idea for the name of the show many years ago. The number of the stories we were covering here on the show had redacted documents, things they didn't want you to see, COVID, Pfizer documents, all sorts of government hidden documents. So that was the idea. People ask me, like, how'd you come up with the name for the show? That's where it came from. Anyway, and
I remember that conversation, and the minute you said that, I was like, yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I hosted a show for many years on Fox News Channel called Fox and Friends. That was the show that I did for many, many years. And so to be able to name after leaving mainstream media and working for mainstream media for 20 years, I get to name my own show and cover the stories that I want to cover. And we have no corporate overlords. No one. We have no billionaires or Pfizer or anybody telling us what to say here. So they can go F themselves. We get to say what we want to say here on this show. And I don't give a rat's ass what any of those people think. So thank you guys so much for subscribing, being a part of our great community here. Again, Natalie, my co-host, my lovely wife, is not feeling well. She's off tonight, sleeping. She's got some chest problem, pneumonia or something. Not pneumonia, but they were worried it could turn into pneumonia. So glad we caught it at this. She went to the urgent care this morning and to get that taken a look at. So thank you for being here for this breaking news evening tonight. We hope we brought you value. If we did, please subscribe to the channel, be a part of our community. I should mention we do have a Plus Club, our Redacted Plus Club. I don't know, Philip, if you have that handy, or if I put Philip to sleep or not, but we have a Redacted Plus Club, and it's a great community. If you'd like to support independent journalism, this show is totally free, but for the price of a cup of coffee once a month, if you'd like to come over and join our private community where we give you access to our exclusive interviews before anyone else gets to see them, content that no one else gets to see, that you get to see there exclusively as part of our Redacted Plus Club membership. Just go to redacted.inc. It's not .com, it's .inc. And it's a great way to stay connected with us as well. It's our locals community. So if you're on Rumble, watching us on Rumble, just click the red button and you can join our locals community and support independent journalists that we have here on the show. So thank you guys. We are user supported by you guys. So thank you much. Well, tough night for America. Terrible night for America, actually, no matter where you come down in the political spectrum. This is a dark day for the United States of America, for sure. Failure of our justice system and a disaster for a presidential election. So much for being like the shining example on a hill that Ronald Reagan spoke about, for crying out loud. This is we look like a banana republic tonight, and it's really, really sad. Well, much love to all of you guys. We'll see you back here over the weekend with different additional content. Our live show will resume on Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, have a great night, everyone.